Well, hello and welcome to episode 3 of the Health Hub. So if you're new to this podcast, for want of a better term, welcome. Glad to see you. I hope this will be interesting and a bit of fun for you, as well as informative. And for those that have stuck with me, well, thank you very much. So the whole idea of this, the Health Hub, is talking about supplements, stuff that's been in the news, and general health advice, and trying to make it a little bit fun and educational as we go along. I'm Gary Borman. I'm a degree qualified naturopath, and in future episodes we will cover why I say that so often. I've done extra studies in nutritional medicine as well as herbal medicine, and I've been in clinical practice for a long way over a decade now. So let's get into it. As always, got to start off with a disclaimer, reading carefully. So the following segment should be considered as information, education and entertainment only. It's not designed to replace professional, individualised recommendations and does not infer ceasing prescription medications, especially today's topics. The information presented here, or if the information presented here causes concerns about current health regimes, please discuss these concerns with the prescribing clinician or a qualified healthcare practitioner in a proper clinical environment. And when I say that, that doesn't mean over the back fence, and it doesn't mean at the local health food store where you're just going to have 5 minutes to quickly talk about stuff. Diet, lifestyle, everything comes into it. It's not just about prescribing pills. Alrighty, so this week, as per the last couple of weeks, is brought to you by MyActive. MyActive is the latest and greatest as far as arthritis and joint care products go. Quite sensational. I've been using it in my clinic for a few years, right from the very first time it was invented, and we've seen some absolute outstanding results with people. So thank you for the people at MyActive, and the little plug will be coming in a bit later. Topics for this week: a vegan that goes carnivore. Well, yeah, that's interesting. What is your greatest asset? Something you should have a big think about. Statin drugs, balancing the risks. And this is a story from the Mayo Clinic. So what is regarded as one of the top health authorities in the world. So we'll just take a little bit of information from there. It's not sensationalism. And the digital detox. A professor of media studies goes electronics free for 5 weeks. Very interesting story that he had to come and share. So let's get into it. A vegan that went carnivore. Yeah, there we go. There is the two opposite ends of extreme style diets. And if you've been a long-term watcher, you know my thoughts on the carnivore diet, and it's nothing fantastic. I really think it's quite insane, and people will hurt themselves long-term, and doesn't suit lots of people. Those that do well, more power to you. Good luck. Vegans as well. Being a vegan and the vegan diet, you have to do it well, or becoming deficient in nutrients is very common. The more common things that we do see is iron and B12 in particular. We do see protein deficiency over time as well, because unless you're doing your food combining with the nuts and seeds and all the vegetables and everything else, you do start getting a little bit light on as far as getting all of your amino acids, because our animal-based proteins contain all of our amino acids, whereas a vegetable-based diet does not. So you have to combine numerous sources to make sure that you do cover off all of those areas of nutrition. Now you might gather that my opinion on the vegan diet is a little bit tough, but I'm just going to be stating the facts on it. And we'll start with one of those. For those that are vegans, luckily they still had all of their teeth, because we have 32 teeth in our mouth at adults. And we have molars and incisors. So molars are really good for chewing up plant matter, whereas our incisors are for cutting and tearing stuff. So ideal for chewing on flesh. So that's why I think we should eat a bit of both. But let's just see what this article has to say. This vegan wellness blogger, Elise Parker, apparently she has 727,000 YouTube followers and 204 Instagram followers, or sheep as I might want to call them. She decided that she was having so many health problems on her vegan diet that, being a vegan for only 5 years at that, she would still continue to blog on it and say how good veganism was, whilst going to the other extreme and becoming a carnivore and going to the meat-only diet. Pretty crazy in my mind, going from one extreme to the other, but she claims that the next morning after just eating meat alone, and that was all. She felt mentally clear, focused, and more wholesome and healthy than she had felt in years. And that's only after one day. Well, I reckon you must have started with a nice little piece of bacon, because damn, that will make you feel better. She also claimed she had more energy and more focus throughout the day in comparison to when she was a vegan. So let's just say that her first post after going off veganism to meat really did belt the shit out of the vegan diet and her thoughts on what she was expounding for so many years as the best way to eat. Of real interest, some of her followers, actually jumped on the bandwagon with her and said, great idea, I used to be a vegan. And one person said she found veganism was entrenched in a cult-like mentality. And yeah, you know, most people, if they're a vegan, they want to tell you all about it and tell you how good it is and how cruel you are for killing animals, incisors, we're meant to eat them. She also went on to say that she knows a lot of people that were jumping off their vegan lifestyle and felt so much better for eating meat in their diet. Now, what is really interesting about this is because she said she felt better instantly. Well, there's only one word for it, and that's bullshit. Because if you haven't been eating protein sources from animals for 5 years or possibly longer, if you went and started straight back and only ate meat, all the enzymes that we need to break down the meats, so protease in particular, your body hasn't been making it. It is not going to do well at producing that when you present it with a 400 gram breakfast Greek steak. You are going to struggle, you are going to feel loaded up, you're going to feel very heavy, you're going to feel nauseous. Anyone who is a vegan or even has a very, very, very low animal-based protein diet, you need to ease back into it when you want to ramp things up, if you want to get back into eating a lot more meats. Over time, yes, you will fall back into it, no problems at all. But initially, I would actually recommend supplementation with a protease support. You know, I have a couple in clinic for people that aren't making enough acid. But yeah, you just don't jump straight back into this, otherwise you are going to feel bad. So as for feeling fantastic the next day, bullshit. But anyone who is a vegan, look, it's your choice. But if you do want to get back to eating animal-based protein, ease into it, and that way you will do way better. Alrighty. Number 2, your greatest asset. Now this is a bit of a philosophical thought for you. So when people say, you know, oh, I'm rich, I'm wealthy, I'm stuff like this, well, everyone has their slant on that. So is it health, is it friendship, is it relationships? Well, I'm going to give you a little bit of a thought here. Most people would think the greatest asset they're ever going to have is their house or houses if they're investors, because it's very easy to spend $500,000 or even more here in Australia for what you live in. And if you've got investment properties, you could have a few $1 million out there in bricks and mortar. Is that great? Your greatest asset? Perhaps. If you're fortunate enough to have a boat, well, new boats, they can range from easily, you know, 80,000, but you know, even 10 or 20 for a small boat, up to a couple of $100,000 for a fairly nice looking boat. So some might even call that their greatest asset or their second greatest. Or even their cars. You know, we all have our cars. You know, you're not going to get much of a car for under 20 grand these days. So again, you're throwing a fair bit of money into these physical assets. Here's something to think about. Personally, I think health is one of the greatest things that you can have, and is your greatest asset, because when it's gone, your ability to earn an income is greatly diminished, or that can even disappear. And here is some simple stuff, simple maths. This came off the Australian Bureau of Statistics website. The average wage in Australia for 2018 was $1,634 a week. Nice if you can get it. I did not. That works out to a shade under $85,000 per year before taxes. And if we do that in some maths, if we said you were 35 years old, working until 55, you're going to earn well over $1.7 million if you're on that average wage now and it doesn't go up with inflation, and it will. Now, $1.7 million, that's a few houses, that's one cracking boat, I'll give you the tip, or it is the sort of car that they're only making half a dozen each year in the world. And thinking about that, if you did have that cracking boat, or if you did have a car, let's say you paid $500,000 for a car, would you put the best fuel in? If it said, put in ultra premium fuel, you'd do it. If it said get your car serviced every 3 months, you would do it. If it said put these tyres on, you would do it. And we're talking a $500,000 car. You are worth way more than that all day, every day, as far as what you're able to provide for yourself and for your family. So you owe it to yourself to stay well and stay healthy, because you are worth way more than $1 million. Look after yourself, maintain yourself, see people like me, see mainstream medicine, get massages, just do your best and put the best food and drink that you can into yourself. So think about that next time, because we do all take our health for granted, and it's only when it disappears that people start thinking about their health and well-being. So there we go. Won't screw this one up. I think that's worth keeping. Alrighty, so MyActive, our sponsor for the segment. MyActive is what we call an arthritis breakthrough because it's made like no other. It's been put together in a different way, and it's been grown in a way such as all the key ingredients to make cartilage have been put together, rather than just saying all you need is glucosamine, all you need is fish oil, all you need is MSM, anything like that. So with MyActive, it's gone through the rigorous processes of going through the Australian Register of Therapeutic Goods, so its magic number is listed in the front of the bottle. From a toxicity perspective, you can combine it with any of your current medications and it will not hurt you. So safety profile is better than any drug I've ever seen out there. Interactions with nothing that we can find. A product like no other in the marketplace. If you know someone who's got arthritis or suffering joint pain, recommend giving it a try. myactive.com.au, MyActiv. Do yourself and your friends a favour. Statins. Well, stick your hand up if you know what statin drugs are. Yep, they are one of the most profitable drugs in the history of mankind. So Lipitor, I think, grossed $7 billion in 1 year. That's billion with a B. That's a lot of dollars for cholesterol-lowering medications. We'll cover this in another story about the folly of the theory behind why we need to lower cholesterol, because the work done by Ansel Keys was some of the worst science you could ever come across. But the whole statin theory and his theory on fats and causing heart attacks lasted for the next 50 years. And with that gave birth to the drug called statins. Most commonly Lipitor is there, simvastatin's another one we see very commonly in clinic. Now they work in the liver because the liver produces something like 70% of our cholesterol. And cholesterol, yes, it can clog up the arteries. However, we need it for simple processes like making hormones. Very essential. We do run on hormones. It's also required in every cell wall. So every little cell that we have, the 100 trillion of them, actually has a little wall of cholesterol around it. So reasonably important that we do maintain it, and blocking it, in my mind, is not the smartest thing that was ever invented in history. Now, what are statins? So they actually block an enzyme called HMG-CoAs reductase. There's the nerd segment for the week, had to get that one in. And unfortunately, it's up here in the processes in the liver, and cholesterol is made down here. There's about 6 steps in between. And unfortunately, in between some of those steps is where coenzyme Q10 is produced, and as I said earlier, we need that cholesterol in the end to make hormones. So getting rid of a lot of that can cause a lot of side effects. And in particular, when we talk CoQ10, the most abundant muscle in the body, the muscle in the body that has the most abundant supply of CoQ10 is our old mate in here, the heart. It has the greatest concentration of cardiac tissue. So when you start taking a drug for your heart health that actually depletes the thing that gives your heart the most amount of energy, not seeing the logic so well in that. So if you are taking a statin, absolutely look into should you be taking some coenzyme Q10, or in particular ubiquinol, which is the activated and reduced form. Yeah, statins, where did they originally come from? And this is what's interesting. They talk about natural medicine really doesn't work much, doesn't do a real lot, but it's actually from red rice yeast extract. Now, in Australia, it's pretty well a banned product because, you know, hey, you can hurt yourself with that, and yet that's exactly what the statins do. It works exactly the same way. So if you do turn up some red rice yeast extract, you are taking a statin. It does the same thing, works in the same way, and that's where it was all invented from. So there you go. I bet most people didn't know that. Your GP probably didn't know that one either, when he told you that other stuff doesn't work. Unfortunately, and this is all from the Mayo Clinic, not making this up, the side effects that are common with statins is muscle pain and weakness. Again, most important muscle in here. Also our diaphragm, pulls down, we draw air into our lungs, reasonably important muscle as well. So that can be a problem, and some people do suffer quite badly from that. And certainly that is a time to go and talk to your prescribing person, usually your GP. You'll find if you are on statins, you should be getting very regular liver tests because it can damage the liver. So they'll look at the liver enzymes and watch for elevation in there. It can actually increase blood sugar and lead to type 2 diabetes. Now this is one of the lesser known things about statin drugs. So you have to be very careful if you're taking these things long term because they can cause problems. It can also cause memory loss or confusion. And these can be exacerbated if you're female, have a small frame, or drink excessive alcohol. So a lot of these things need to be weighed up. So if you are taking one of these drugs or you know someone taking one of these drugs, get them to have a bit of an overhaul of their lifestyle and just see if it is still appropriate for them. My biggest thing, if we are talking people with elevated cholesterol and wanting to move away from statin drugs, is reduce triglycerides. Now triglycerides are formed from excessive amounts of sugars, carbohydrates, so like breads, pasta consumption, or just too much sugar, soft drinks, etc. Now these triglycerides, or trigs as we call them in the trade, we don't need that anymore, what they do is they cause potholes to form, for want of a better term. They cause inflammation to the endothelial lining of your blood vessels, and that's the inside of your blood vessels. These potholes form, so as the blood's swishing past, it sort of creates a bit of turbulence, and that can create little clots and oxidation, so very bad. So we actually start making more of the LDL cholesterol, what they call the bad stuff, which is actually pretty good for you, to go and fill in these potholes like the road crew. Doesn't make a lot of sense to stop making that if you've got high triglycerides. So try and get your triglycerides down, let the repair work be done by the body, and then maybe you might not need those statins. You might be just doing pretty well for yourself. Okay, final story for the day. Not checking my time this week either. Hopefully we're doing well. Digital detox. This was a professor of media studies from one of the universities down in Melbourne, University of Melbourne, catchy name. He went on a digital detox for 5 weeks just to see how he would go with that. So that meant he jumped on a ship, left Australia to go up to Singapore. Nobody on the ship spoke English, which was just fascinating in itself. He took a couple of books, no laptop, no tablet, no phone, no nothing. So he just cut himself off. He said it was like being in jail, but ultimately he loved it and would do it again. So amazing stuff. He said with the books, he read them quite quickly, purely because of boredom, because he didn't have anyone to talk to. But after a while, he found with the boredom, he started to find that his imagination and his curiosity really started to open up. And he was giving examples like looking at a hinge, and he could see that there was a bit of a burr mark on one of the screws. And he started thinking, I wonder how that happened. I wonder when it happened, So who was standing here when they did that? And he just started thinking about more and more things and more in depth, and really developed his imagination and his memory. He started recalling things from his childhood a lot clearer, and he was talking about he could recall the inflections that people were talking about, people laughing, the smells with particular memories, things that he really hadn't recalled in the past. Now that was still there in his memories, but there was just so much other clutter, so much of this white noise from electronics, he didn't remember it as clearly. He also started to lose the concept of time and was only governed by daylight and darkness. Fascinating in itself. He said he started to sleep a lot better and had to, quote, amazing dreams. So really quite interesting what it did with getting away from the electronic devices and just the hold that they have on our day-to-day life. He said he tried to carry as many of these principles back to land as possible and greatly reduce his amount of electronic time. But, a professor of media studies, I can't see that long-term being able to be held up so well. But really quite interesting. Of a lot of interest here, he didn't talk about how he felt physically, because there is a condition that we see with people that are high technology users, and it's called texter's neck. And there's a lot of articles around on this, but in particular, the greater your degree of head forward puts a lot more weight on your neck. So, quick chart, you can easily download that one. But when we're talking about when it's straight up and down, your head is about, it's American, 10 to 12 pounds, so about 5 kilos. At 15 degrees, that becomes 27 pounds. At 30 degrees, that's 40 pounds. At 60 degrees, so like that, a lot of people reading laptops, tablets, or the true laptop if you are doing work on the train. 60 pounds is your head stress on your neck muscles. So these little muscles are only designed for that 10 to 12 pounds, so 5 times, 500% more strain on those neck muscles, and that's where a lot of people start feeling sore up in here in the trapezius area, start getting a lot more headaches, start feeling stiff and sore, and not to mention when we're laptopping, you know, I've got my old mate here, but the camera's not quite in shot, but we start hunching over after we've been sitting in front of them for a while, so it really does harm our posture long term. Would have been interesting to see just how he felt physically after getting off that boat and maintaining a great posture for 5 weeks as well. Super fascinating stuff. Next week we'll probably talk about how 1 in 4 teenagers is actually addicted to technology, and this whole thing about texter's neck will come up because chiropractors and physical therapists I know are starting to see a lot more teens with neck issues and spinal and skeletal issues from too much technology. So there we go. Hope you've enjoyed the program. Hope you found it informative. If you have, share it with a friend. If you do want to come and see me, you'll find me at feelinggreatnaturally.com.au. Sorry, that's my full site. Just let's go to the short one, feelinggreat.com.au. You can book in on the calendar, or you can give us a call on the number that's on the website, and I'd love to come and have a personal consultation with you. But until next time, be nice to a stranger, because one day that stranger could be you and you'd like someone to be kind to you.